One more week into the NFL offseason and we're all left asking one very important question. And no, it's not when will Liam get something else on his wall that's not a Flyers jersey, and it's not has Liam gone through puberty. It is of course when will the Eagles sign a running back. We're going to answer that and so much more in today's episode of This Week in Philadelphia Sports. So if you're new around here guys, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, leave a like if you enjoy this content, and don't forget to comment your opinions below. We had a video a few days ago where we spoke about Ronald Darby, and your opinions on that were interesting to say the least. We'll get to those in a few moments time, but we're going to start in chronological order, and the first thing the Eagles did this week was start tinkering with some more money. They restructured some deals. Nigel Bradham and Chris Long were the two names this week who freed up some cap space for the Philadelphia Eagles as Howie Roseman continues to navigate through some very torrid salary cap waters. Now if we fast forward 7 days, the Eagles have approximately $21 million in cap space, and that is after giving $8.5 million to Ronald Darby. So it's safe to say Howie Roseman has been living up to his reputation as a former winner of the NFL Executive of the Year award, but this move in itself did raise a very interesting point. And that's we don't know whether Chris Long will return. This all comes down to playing time for Chris Long, and who can blame him? Could walk into a number of NFL teams and be the guy at defensive end. It doesn't help that the Eagles have just restructured Brandon Graham, brought him back on a new deal. You've got Derek Barnett in the wings, Josh Sweat in the wings, and arguably you could find a new defensive end in the draft as well. And if that is the case, Chris Long isn't going to be seeing the bulk of snaps. He could be seeing under 60%, which is exactly what we saw last time out. I know myself and many others included want to see Chris Long back in Philadelphia, not just for the work he does on the field, but after all, he is the Walter Payton Man of the Year, someone that gives so much back to the communities, whether it's through the Water Boys Foundation or by helping give school books to charities in Philadelphia, donating his entire salary in 2017 to help those communities in need. And also the man crush of very many. I mean, I can't lie, if we're ranking Philadelphia man crushes, I think Chris Long is at the top, but that's not a reason we do want to see him back. If the Eagles didn't lose Michael Bennett in a trade to the Patriots, this would be a very different discussion. But I do think that freeing up that slot just gives Chris Long that boost, and that may be enough assurance he needs to come back one more season and make one last run at getting a trio of Super Bowl rings. Then midway through the week, the Eagles signed a player with the initials LJ. And no, it wasn't me with my 38.5-inch vertical, which, have I told you 38 and a... what a vertical? Me, I've never mentioned that before. What's that? Average college athlete? Oh, so that must have slipped the radar. But anyway, the Eagles signed linebacker LJ Fort. So this is a guy that's going to come in, played over 70% of special team snaps for Pittsburgh last year, will be an immediate injection of production in Dave Phipp's unit, but more importantly, gives the Eagles somewhat of an insurance policy. They lost Jordan Hicks to free agency this week. He's now signed a big-time deal with the Arizona Cardinals, and that's fine. They were never really expected to be main players given how productive Hicks has been when healthy. However, they do need to find some insurance at middle linebacker, and while Paul Warrellow's return is going to be big, he is coming off an ACL, and you're not really sure what you're going to get out of him yet. Linebacker has become a key need for the Eagles right now, and as much as they love Camus Grugier-Hill on the outside, as much as they like the idea of Nate Jerry moulding into this Malcolm Jenkins type prototype, the Eagles do run a lot of big dime and big nickel packages, which means there is one less linebacker on the field. So as of right now, you've got Warrellow and potentially LJ Fort who are going to fight it out in training camp for a starting middle linebacker spot. I would not be surprised to see the Eagles take a linebacker in the heart of the NFL draft. My personal draft crush here would be Blake Cashman, but I can see him rising up into the second round and beyond, so maybe not. We see the Eagles go a little bit higher than they normally would to pick a linebacker, but if they do, you're going to have a veteran and a rookie to groom in that middle spot. And then came the big one, the move that sparked off probably my most disliked video on YouTube. During my podcast, I stated that if this move happens 10 minutes after this podcast, I will have a breakdown. And lo and behold, the move happened, so that was great. The move to bring back Ronald Darby on a 1-year, $8.5 million deal. If you haven't seen the big 10-minute rant, I'll touch on the key points from it. Because a load of you guys, I understand, are incredibly passionate about the Ronald Darby debate. And do you know what? The point of that video was to really enrich that debate, to say, hey, this is my take on it. And instead of putting out a tweet and saying, hey, this was the Eagles' worst off-season move, and then it blowing up and it clearly being for views, what I would love to do is generate discussion. That's what this channel is about. We've got a community here, over 7,000 of you now. I want to hear your takes, your opinions, and you guys let it flood in the comments. There are nearly 200 of you that left comments, which blows my mind. So thank you for the feedback. Whether you agree with me, disagree with me or not, you guys are literally the best fans on YouTube. Firstly, I think this is a good move in terms of giving the Eagles some optionality. I've never once said Darby is a bad cornerback. I do, however, feel that his skill set contrasts Jalen Mills. In a way that Jalen Mills is a strong tackler, weak in coverage, Ronald Darby is the opposite. And there were many plays last year where he whiffed on tackles, had poor angles that led to big plays, and even struggled in coverage himself at times. Yes, he's only 25. The Eagles aren't really going to reap the rewards of his age, given that he signed a one-year prove-it deal. Not only that, but he's also the fastest corner on the Eagles roster, which is something that is quite needed, given the amount of fast receivers they've played in recent years, and it does give that recovery speed some time if he bites in a double move or something of that nature. However, the Eagles have a flurry of cornerbacks right now, and you've got to think the future of this position is entering a very, very crucial stage. Jalen Mills and Ronald Darby are now entering their final contracted year with the team, and outside of that, you've then got a big uncertainty in Sidney Jones. The team have just about started to utilise Ronald Douglas to a point where he's a fringe starter. You don't know what you have in Crayvon LeBlanc. I think he could be a shoo-in for the starting nickel spot. And then there's Avonte Maddox, last year's arguable Rookie of the Year for the Eagles at least, as a man that came in and played at every position, whether it was nickel, whether it was learning safety for the first time, or performing outside. If the Eagles want Maddox at safety, that's going to give them some optionality. But the truth is, if you're just going to stick Darby, Jones and Mills out again, one, you're hurting the growth of Maddox and company, two, you're not really going to give a look to Crayvon LeBlanc or Ronald Douglas, and three, again, those contrasting weaknesses are just going to give a quarterback option to pick your point. But my main problem with this is that Darby has missed 15 games in 2 years and has taken $8.5 million. If your angle for defending this move is, hey, this buys the Eagles some optionality, it lets them at least have a year more to see what they have in guys like Douglas and LeBlanc and Maddox, fine. You can get that with a prove-it contract guy like Patrick Robinson, who came on a much cheaper prove-it deal, started in the nickel, was arguably the best defensive back in 2017 on the Eagles roster, if not the NFC, cost them a pretty penny, and that was it. That was job done. $8.5 million just for that luxury? I'm not buying it. We are going to move on to something a little bit more important, and that is why haven't the Eagles signed a running back? Because that seems to be the most pressing issue right now. What is going on with Philadelphia? Why haven't they got a running back? They saw Tevin Coleman sign a very, very team-friendly, it appeared, 2-year deal worth just over $5 million. Why weren't the Eagles in? Were they reported favourites? They should have been all over it. I completely agree, but I've got a theory. I said this on a podcast. I've said it in an article. So if you're hearing this a third time, I'm very sorry. But if you remember back to 2015, where Howie Roseman was, as Jason Kelce said it, spread to another part of the building where he didn't see him for almost a year, okay, Roseman is watching Chip Kelly spend $45 million on DeMarco Murray, who then averages 3.6 yards per carry, has just over 700 yards, drops the ball, doesn't have effort, the team falls apart. It wasn't great, okay. Doug Peterson at that same time, meanwhile, is missing Jamal Charles due to injury and sees Charles Sandrick West, Spencer Ware and Niall Davis take the fold and really elevate that Chiefs rushing attack. Even with Jamal Charles back in the fold, things were never really the same. It was a committee effort from then on out. So when the two kind of meshed together in 2016, the Eagles had to work very hard to get rid of DeMarco Murray's contract. It was a $13 million cap hit for one player. They got him offloaded to the Titans, fine. But ever since then, the Eagles have not paid a running back over a tenth almost, it seems like. There have been a couple that have edged nearly $3 million. Even Ajayi, though, had under $1 million in his first year as an Eagle. Wendell Smallwood, Corey Clement, Josh Adams, all due to make under $1 million in 2019. The Eagles don't value the running position because if you invest in a bell cow back, how many bell cow back teams have gone to a Super Bowl and won? If you take out Todd Gurley for now because of what happened with CJ Anderson, you've got the Patriots who rotate backs. Le'Veon Bell has never been near a Super Bowl so far. Ezekiel Elliott has definitely never been near a Super Bowl so far. Saquon Barkley probably never will get near a Super Bowl so long as he's a Giant. There aren't many bell cow backs in the NFL dating, but even Adrian Peterson, guys like that, who get to a Super Bowl. The cheapest way to do it, the most efficient way to do it, is to have a committee of backs that spread open your offense because they can hurt you in different dimensions, that give you some optionality and can hurt you in different ways. This keeps them fresher, it reduces injury, and more importantly, reduces cap hit. I personally believe Roseman has looked at what's going on with the Eagles. He's looked at 2015, a year where he's watching Chip Kelly dismantle it from the inside out and seen that's not the way to do it. That is not the way to run the ball in today's NFL. He's then seen what's happened with Doug Peterson in Kansas City, who's come in with a like-minded view, and ever since then, whether it's Ryan Matthews, whether it's Darren Sproles, whether it's LeGarrette Blount, whether it's Jay Ajayi, there have been key players who are paid very minimal on incentive-based deals that can come in and sting a defense in a multitude of ways, and that is the way this will be built. So will they sign a free agent? I don't know. Will they trade for a guy? I doubt it. We're getting to a point now where you look at the NFL draft, and this is the worry. Howie Roseman's talent evaluation of Wendell Smallwood and Donnell Pumphrey's been in a lab for 2 years, according to his Twitter, in which I think he's been breaking test tubes and dropping DNA samples everywhere. I think the Eagles are going to look to the draft where you have more versatile guys. There are a flurry of mid-round steals. Many of them can fit that mold of a versatile guy, and they can't miss. And if they don't, and they're able to select a back, someone like a Devin Singletary, perhaps someone like a Darrell Henderson, a name that can come in off the bat, filter into that committee effort. We're not saying Wendell Smallwood's going to be your bell cow back, but at least you've got some optionality there. Maybe a couple of undrafted free agents, since they seem to be hitting quite well on those. I don't think the Eagles are going to go out and spend $5 million on a free agent running back because they don't believe it's a wise resource of money. Begs me to question why they put $8 million on Ronald Darby, but again, that's a debate we'll save for another time. But as for why they won't invest, I genuinely think there has to be some imprint left from that 2015 season on both Peterson's and Howie Roseman's part. That's a mutual agreement. There is a reason why they've not gone out and spent big bucks on a running back, because they could. They've still got $21 million in cap space. They could have been runners for Bell, they could have been runners for Coleman, but they're not. Why? The Eagles don't view the running back position as a way to spend money in a skill position and truly benefit from it. On to the Flyers though, their playoff hopes took a major dent with a loss to the Washington Capitals earlier this week, and although they can rebound back with a win on Sunday, which is when this video goes out, so either a yay or a nay depending how it's going, you've got to look towards the future, and more importantly how they're going to rebuild that defense from the ground up. They've got so many prospects in the pool right now. I think that's going to be a focus. They've got to turn towards the future. Are they going to bring in Joel Quenneville? Is that going to be their new head coach? Are they going to stay with Scott Gordon? Has he earned that right to stay? There are a lot of questions around this franchise right now. The one thing that we can take away for sure though is that the trading of Wayne Simmons somewhat ends an era, and now the Flyers have got to look at every other player in that pool. There have been guys for years who have said that Giroux should be traded, which I frankly completely disagree with, hence the old jersey. But I do think that there has to come a time. You've got guys like Konechny, Patrick and Provorov who are going to be key centre points of this team moving forward. How are you going to build the rest of it? Building through the draft has worked to a point. You've now got a talent pool of prospects that you can pull from. So many guys in the minors who you can call up and make a difference. And of course with Carter Hart at goaltending, nearly an entire season for the Flyers to figure out the goaltending solution. And this has been a battle that's raged on for nearly 2-3 years now. Whether it's Brian Elliott or Neuvirth or even Steve Mason at times, there was honestly never ever a sense of comfort at the goalie position, and now they've finally found it. Really move forward and begin building this team in the right direction. The one thing that has annoyed Flyers fans this week has been the Jake Voracek suspension, a 2-game suspension for the most BS of hits, you can honestly say. We can't probably show it because of copyright, but you can imagine Voracek and the reaction he got when he just kind of, not really worth a 2-game suspension, given it was more of a reactive hit, if we're honest. And considering how the NHL Player and Safety Act regarded days after, wasn't the wisest decision they've made. But moving on to the Phillies, and my God, can we please for a second talk about what happened to Bryce Harper? Now, I've never heard of Trent Thornton, and I don't want to know who Trent Thornton is, because if I ever see him, these gangly little noodle arms won't do anything, but I'll give him a very dirty look. A very dirty look, so know that. But a 96-mile-an-hour fastball onto the ankle, and I know that Bryce Harper was wearing protection, but for crying out loud, did you hear the sound of the ball hitting his ankle? It was the most spine-chilling, like, cringy feeling I've ever had watching a sporting moment. It just made me feel sick. Like, put it this way, if I walk into a door, which happens frequently, or I stub my toe on something, I want my foot amputated in that moment. I am in agony for about 3 minutes, and I want the world to know about it. A 96-mile-an-hour fastball on the ankle bone, I can't imagine anything more painful. And for context, I broke my finger almost going down a slide. I pushed myself off, the finger bent back, and that was the only thing I can relate it to. And I'm pretty sure that finger's still bent out of shape now, because I never went to a doctor's. I don't want to show you because I look like I'm swearing. But if it was anything like that, Bryce, I feel very sorry for the pain you went through. However, the Phillies' new season is just under 2 weeks away, so don't forget, all your coverage will come at phillysportsnetwork.com. That is going to be a very, very exciting time indeed. And finally, onto the Sixers, who may or may not, depending when you watch this video, have clinched a playoff berth with a win against the Bucks. So if they have, the Sixers have clinched a playoff berth against the Milwaukee Bucks in a big win and a season that finally comes to an end with the team getting it all together at the right time. There's still some way to go, see how far up the ladder they can climb, and finally getting into a routine ahead of the playoffs. But it's a great time to be a Sixers fan. Here's if they didn't win. And the Sixers failed to clinch a playoff berth in a loss to the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. And you've got to wonder, it's the end of the season, will they get it all together in the right time? So that's all for Sixers news this week. Also, hang on, it's Selection Sunday. And I don't know anything about March Madness because I don't follow college basketball. But all I know is I put money on underdogs, I buy pizza, and I shout a lot. So I'm excited for that. All the big teams, all great things on the court with buzzer beaters and mascots and all great stuff. So stay tuned for that, probably. Philadelphia Union, they played Sporting Kansas City last Sunday and lost 2-0. That didn't go well. Their season has literally gone down like a cup of cold stick. 2 weeks in, it's not gone well. Will they turn it around? I don't know. Check our content, phillysportsnetwork.com. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, guys. From myself, Liam Jenkins, please leave a like and a comment if you enjoy what we do. Let me hear your takes on everything. Hit subscribe if you're new around here, and stay tuned for another episode of This Week in Philadelphia Sports. We'll have an Eagles film room coming out soon. We're going to have plenty more content. There is a new mock draft being made right now, and of course, daily content from myself and all of our writers at phillysportsnetwork.com. We'll see you soon.